Commander Elena Morgan stood on the bridge of the UEF Dauntless. She watched the stars through the large window. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and her uniform was perfect. Elena had been in space for 15 years. She was one of Earth's best ship commanders. Another quiet day, she said to no one in particular. The bridge crew worked at their stations. Screens showed maps of space, ship systems, and communication channels. The Dauntless was Earth's flagship, the biggest and most powerful ship humans had ever built. 50 years ago, humans learned something surprising. The Galactic Federation, a group of many alien species, had labeled humans as Deathworlders. This meant that Earth was considered an extremely dangerous planet. High gravity, harsh weather, dangerous animals, and natural disasters made Earth a place where only the toughest creatures could survive. The aliens were shocked that humans not only lived on such a planet but thrived there. What aliens feared about humans, humans just called normal. Being strong, healing quickly, and enduring pain were just parts of being human. These traits made other species nervous around them. Lieutenant Daniel Wright sat at the communications station. He was young for his position, only 28, but he had a special talent for finding signals that others missed. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "Commander," Daniel said suddenly, sitting up straight. "I'm picking up something strange." Elena walked over to his station. "What kind of something?" "A distress signal, I think, but it's not using any Federation codes I recognize." Daniel adjusted some settings. "It's coming from the Vega 12 sector." "That's outside mapped. Federation space," said Lieutenant Kate Wilson from navigation. She pulled up a map on the main screen. A red dot blinked in empty space far from any known settlements. Elena frowned. "Are we sure it's not an echo or interference?" Daniel shook his head. "No, Commander. This is definitely a signal. Someone out there is calling for help." "Alert Admiral Hayes," Elena ordered, "and call the senior officers for a meeting. We need to decide what to do." Admiral Victor Hayes was 63 years old. His hair was gray, and his face showed the marks of someone who had seen many battles. He had commanded the United Earth fleet for 12 years. The fleet had 12 warships and 20 support vessels. They were on a diplomatic mission to meet with Federation representatives. The officers gathered in the meeting room. The walls displayed star maps and ship data. Admiral Hayes sat at the head of the table. "Tell me about this signal," Hayes said. Daniel played the recording. Strange sounds filled the room. Not quite music, not quite language, but definitely created by something intelligent. "It repeats every 90 seconds, Daniel explained. "It's been broadcasting for at least 3 days based on the signal degradation." Dr. Catherine Moore spoke next. She was the fleet's expert on alien life. "If this is from an unknown species, it could be an important first contact opportunity." "Or a trap," said Captain Greg Lewis of the UEF Sentinel. "Pirates have used fake distress signals before." Around the table, humans and a few Federation observers debated what to do. The Federation aliens looked uncomfortable. They always seemed nervous around humans, especially when humans talked about potential dangers. One Federation observer, a tall blue-skinned alien named Zorax, spoke up. "Federation protocol suggests caution. Unknown signals should be reported, but not approached without proper authorization." Hayes nodded politely to Zorax but turned to his officers. "We're not in Federation space. We follow human protocols here." He looked at the star map. "How long would it take us to reach the signal's location?" "About 30 hours at maximum speed," Kate answered. Hayes thought for a moment. Everyone waited for his decision. Finally, he stood up. "Humanity has always had one rule above all others. We help those in need. We will investigate this signal." His voice was firm. "But we'll be smart about it. Captain Lewis, your ship will take point. Captain Rivera, move your medical ships to the center of our formation where they'll be protected." He pointed to different spots on the map, moving ships around. "We'll approach ready for anything, rescue or battle." The human officers nodded in agreement. The Federation observers looked shocked. "Admiral," Zorax said carefully, "this could be very dangerous." The signal is coming from unknown space. Hayes smiled. Danger is something humans understand very well, Zorax. It's why you call us Deathworlders. Back on the bridge of the Dauntless, Elena watched as the fleet changed course. Ships moved into new positions, warships on the outside, support vessels protected in the middle. The fleet looked like a powerful fist moving through space. All ships report ready, Commander, Daniel said. Elena nodded. Send the fleet wide. Message. We are responding to unknown distress call. Battle readiness level 2. This is not a drill. Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded. Crew members ran to their stations. Engineers checked weapon systems. Doctors prepared medical bays. Marines checked their armor and guns. On the Dauntless, Lieutenant Paula Cooper ran systems checks on the ship's main cannons. The weapons could tear through almost any known material. Federation ships didn't carry weapons this powerful. They thought such firepower was excessive and uncivilized. Humans thought it was just being prepared. Engineer Alan Foster worked in the engine room, making sure the ship's reactors were ready for possible combat maneuvers. The engines roared with power. The noise would damage the hearing of most alien species, but humans had adapted to work in loud environments. Admiral Hayes entered the bridge. Everyone stood a little straighter. Status report, he said. Fleet is in formation and proceeding at 3/4 speed, Elena reported. All systems are combat ready. Hayes looked at the main screen showing the stars ahead. Time to signal source? 28 hours, 17 minutes, Daniel answered. Hayes nodded. Whatever is waiting for us out there will be ready. He turned to Elena. I want sensor sweeps every 30 minutes. If anything moves out there, I want to know about it. Yes, Admiral, Elena said. As the fleet moved forward, the Federation observers watched in amazement. Most species would have ignored the signal or reported it and moved on. But humans were different. Humans rushed toward danger instead of away from it. The Dauntless led the fleet toward the unknown signal, engines glowing brightly against the darkness of space. Whatever was waiting for them, friend or enemy, would soon learn what it meant to encounter the Deathworlders of Earth. The fleet moved through space for 28 hours. On the bridge of the Dauntless, the crew watched as they got closer to the signal's source. Stars streaked by on the view screen. The ships traveled at speeds that would make most aliens sick. But humans were used to fast movement and sudden changes. We're approaching the coordinates, Lieutenant Kate Wilson announced, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds. Commander Elena Morgan nodded. All hands prepare for arrival. The stars on the view screen stopped streaking and became normal points of light. The fleet had arrived. Full sensor sweep, Admiral Hayes ordered. Let's see what we're dealing with. The screens filled with data. In the distance, they could see something large. It wasn't moving. It's a ship, Daniel said, looking at his readings. A very big ship. About 3 times the size of the Dauntless. Life signs? Elena asked. Daniel adjusted his instruments. Yes. Many life signs, but they're strange. Not matching any Federation species we know. Hayes studied the image on the main screen. The alien ship was huge. It had an unusual design with sections that looked like they were made for beings, much larger than humans. Parts of the ship were damaged. Dark spots showed where something had hit it hard. Weapon status? Hayes asked. Their weapons systems appear to be offline, Captain Lewis reported from the Sentinel. But their engines are still partly working. They're just waiting there. Hayes made his decision. We'll approach carefully. Commander Morgan, prepare a first contact team. Dr. Moore, you'll lead the science group. Elena picked her team quickly. Lieutenant Sofia Rodriguez would handle communication. She spoke 7 human languages and had studied alien communication patterns. Lieutenant John Baker would provide security. Engineer Alan Foster would check the alien ship's systems. Dr. Catherine Moore selected 3 science officers to join her. They would study the aliens and their technology. We'll take the Falcon, Elena said, naming one of the fleet's smaller ships. It's fast if we need to leave quickly. The team put on their environmental suits. These suits were heavy and strong. They could protect against radiation, extreme temperatures, and many kinds of weapons. Federation aliens thought these suits were excessive, but humans liked being prepared. The Falcon detached from the Dauntless and flew toward the alien ship. As they got closer, they could see how big it really was. "Look at the hull," Alan said. "Those aren't battle damages. Something ate through the metal." The surface of the alien ship had holes that looked melted. Some sections were completely gone. "The airlock is huge," Elena noted as they approached an entry point. "Whatever uses this ship must be much bigger than us." Sophia worked on the communication system. "I'm broadcasting greetings in all Federation languages plus mathematical sequences that should be universal." After a few minutes, they received a response. Strange clicks and whistles came through the speakers. "The computer is trying to translate," Sophia said. "Give it time to process their language." The Falcon docked with the alien ship. The team gathered at the airlock, checking their suits one last time. Their helmets had special lights and cameras to record everything they saw. "Remember," Elena said, "we're here to help, but safety comes first. Stay alert." The airlock opened. The team stepped into a corridor much taller and wider than any human ship would need. The ceiling was at least 20 feet high. The air was breathable according to their instruments, but had strange chemicals in it. "This ship was built for giants," John said, looking around with his weapon ready. They walked forward slowly. The ship was dark, with only emergency lights working. Some areas had no gravity. The team used magnetic boots to stay on the floor. After walking for 10 minutes, they heard something. Heavy footsteps were coming toward them. "Hold position," Elena ordered. "Weapons ready, but not aimed." Around the corner came something none of them had ever seen before. It was a creature nearly 15 feet tall. It looked like a giant insect standing on 2 legs. It had 4 arms and a hard outer shell. Its head had compound eyes that reflected the light from the human suits. Behind it came more of the same beings. They moved carefully, watching the humans with what seemed like both fear and hope. The translation computer finally worked. The aliens' clicks and whistles became words in the humans' ears. "You came," said the largest alien. "We did not think anyone would hear us." Sophia stepped forward. "We received your distress signal. We're from Earth. We're here to help, if we can." The alien's body language was hard to read, but it seemed surprised. "Earth? The Death World? You are the feared ones?" "We're not here to hurt you," Elena said firmly. "We want to understand what happened to your ship." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Small creatures. We expected monsters. The stories say humans are dangerous." "We can be," John said quietly, "if we need to be." The alien lowered itself slightly, bringing its head closer to the human's level. "I am Krelvox, leader of this vessel. We are the Krell. Our world is gone, destroyed by what we call the Voidborn." Dr. Moore stepped forward. "Can you tell us more about these Voidborn?" Krelvox's body shuddered. "They are not like you or us. They exist partly in another dimension. They consume planets, stars, everything. They attacked our homeworld 3 cycles ago. These few ships are all that remain of our people." "How many survivors?" Elena asked. "On this ship, 523. There were 5 ships when we fled. We have lost contact with the others." Alan had been scanning the ship's systems with his tools. "Commander, their engines are failing. Life support is running on backup power. They have maybe 3 days before critical systems fail completely." Elena looked up at the massive alien. "We want to help you. Our fleet has medical ships and supplies. But we need to understand what we're facing." Krelvox's compound eyes reflected the light strangely. "You would help us, knowing the Voidborn might follow?" "That's what humans do," Elena said simply. "We help where we can." The alien made a series of clicks that the translator didn't catch. Then it said, "Perhaps the stories are wrong. Perhaps being from a death world makes you not monsters, but heroes." Elena activated her communication link to the fleet. Admiral Hayes, we've made contact with the aliens. They call themselves the Krell. They're refugees, sir, and they're being hunted by something they call the Voidborn. Hayes's voice came through clearly. Understood, Commander. Begin evacuation preparations. We'll need to... His voice cut off. In the background, alarms were blaring. Admiral? Elena called. Admiral Hayes? When his voice returned, it was tense. Get your team back here now, Commander. Long-range sensors have detected multiple objects entering the system. Whatever was, hunting the Krell has found them. And now it's found us too. Elena and her team rushed back to the Falcon. Krellvox followed them as quickly as his massive body could move. What is happening? The alien asked. Something is entering the system, Elena explained as they moved. We think it might be the Voidborn, you mentioned. The alien's hard shell seemed to pale. Then we must leave immediately. Nothing can fight them. They reached the Falcon and took off, flying back to the Dauntless at full speed. Through the viewports, they could see the human fleet moving into a defensive formation. The warships formed an outer ring, with support vessels in the center. When they docked, Admiral Hayes was waiting. His face was serious. Sensors show 7 large objects coming into the system, he said. They don't match any known ship design. They're not using engines that we recognize. Krellvox had to bend down to fit through the human doorways. When the alien saw the sensor readings, it made a high-pitched sound of fear. The Voidborn, it confirmed. They have found us. What exactly are they? Hayes asked. We need to know what we're fighting. Fighting? Krellvox's compound eyes shifted, rapidly. You cannot fight them, no one can. They are not fully in this reality. They exist partially in what we call void space. They consume energy, matter, everything. The alien moved to the main view screen, pointing with one of its forearms. They appear solid, but weapons pass through them. They emit fields that break down matter at the atomic level. That is how they feed. Captain Nathan Phillips of the UEF Valiant joined them on the bridge. He was the fleet's best tactical officer. Can they be damaged at all? Krellvox hesitated. Our weapons had little effect, but there was something. When we used our highest energy weapons, they seemed to pull back temporarily. Dr. Linda Garcia, the fleet's chief physicist, had been listening. She was a small woman with quick eyes and quicker thoughts. That might be important. If they feed on energy, perhaps very high or very specific energy types are unpleasant to them. She moved to a console and began working quickly. Admiral, human ships are designed to work in much harsher radiation environments than most Federation vessels. Our shielding can emit electromagnetic frequencies across a wide spectrum. Hayes nodded. What are you thinking, Doctor? If we modulate our shields to cycle through different frequencies, we might find one that repels them, she explained, like finding a sound that hurts their ears, but with energy instead of sound. Hayes looked at the approaching objects on the view screen. They didn't look like ships. They looked like dark clouds with solid centers. They moved in ways that seemed wrong, as if they weren't following the normal rules of physics. How long until they reach us? Hayes asked. 17 minutes at current speed, Kate answered from her station. Hayes made his decision. Begin evacuation of the Krell immediately. Captain Rivera, move your medical ships to dock with their vessel. Dr. Garcia, start your shield modifications. Hugh, turn to the fleet communication system. All ships, battle stations. This is not a rescue mission anymore. This is a fight for survival. Throughout the fleet, red alert signals flashed. Weapon systems powered up. Fighter pilots ran to their small, fast ships. Marines put on battle armor. Doctors prepared medical bays for casualties. On the Dauntless, Engineer Alan Foster worked with Dr. Garcia to modify the shield generators. Their hands moved quickly over the controls. If we push the generators to maximum and cycle through these frequencies, Alan said, we might find something that works, but it will drain our power quickly. Do it, Hayes ordered. Captain Phillips, your ship has our newest weapon systems. You'll take point. Phillips nodded. The Valiant is ready, Admiral. The evacuation of the Krell ship had begun. Human shuttles flew back and forth, carrying the massive aliens to the larger support vessels. The Krell were afraid but moved in an orderly way. They had already lost their home. They knew how to evacuate. "Sir," Daniel called from his station. "The Voidborn are accelerating. New arrival time, 8 minutes." Hayes looked at the incomplete evacuation. "We're not going to get them all out in time." He turned to Elena. "Commander Morgan, take 4 warships and form a closer defensive screen around the Krell vessel. We need to buy more time." Elena nodded and left the bridge. Minutes later, the Valiant, the Sentinel, and 2 other warships moved to surround the damaged Krell ship. 5 minutes to contact," Daniel reported. Dr. Garcia looked up from her work. "The shield modifications are ready. Admiral, but this is just a guess. We don't know if it will work." "Sometimes a guess is all we get," Hayes said. "Deploy the modifications to all ships." The shields around the human vessels changed slightly. The usual blue glow became a cycling pattern of different colors as the frequencies changed rapidly. 3 minutes, Daniel said. Hayes opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Hayes. We're about to engage an unknown enemy. We don't know if our weapons will be effective, but what we do know is this. There are innocent lives depending on us. The Krell have lost their home. They will not lose their future. Not while the United Earth Fleet stands with them." He paused, looking at the approaching Voidborn. "Humans have always faced the impossible. It's what we do. It's why we survived on Earth when our planet tried to kill us every day. We adapt. We overcome. We win." On the Valiant, Captain Phillips and his weapons officer prepared the experimental quantum disruptors. These weapons were designed to damage the space between atoms. They had never been used in actual combat. "Charge disruptors to maximum," Phillips ordered. "Target the center mass of the lead object. 1 minute to contact." The first Voidborn entity approached the outer defense line. Up close it looked even stranger. It was like a dark cloud with something solid inside, but the solid part sometimes disappeared, as if it was phasing in and out of reality. "Steady," Hayes said, watching from the Dauntless. "Hold fire until they're in optimal range." The lead Voidborn reached the outer ships. It extended what looked like tendrils of dark energy toward the Valiant. Where the tendrils touched the shield, they seemed to pause. "It's working," Dr. Garcia said excitedly. "The shields are making it hesitate." But then the tendrils pushed, harder. The Valiant's shields began to flicker. "Fire all weapons," Hayes ordered. The human fleet opened fire, energy beams, missiles, and the experimental disruptors all launched at once. Most passed through the Voidborn with no effect, but the disruptors caused the entity to ripple as if in pain. The battle had begun. The space around the human fleet lit up with weapon fire. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Missiles exploded in bright flashes. The quantum disruptors fired by the Valiant created strange ripples in space itself. Most weapons had little effect on the Voidborn. Energy beams passed through them. Missiles exploded without causing damage. Only the quantum disruptors seemed to hurt them, making the dark entities pull back briefly. "Keep firing the disruptors," Admiral Hayes ordered. "All ships, focus fire, on any spot that shows a reaction." On the bridge of the Valiant, Captain Phillips watched as the lead Voidborn recovered from the first hit and moved toward his ship again. "Their attack pattern is changing," he said. "They're learning." The Voidborn extended more dark tendrils. This time, they avoided direct contact with the shields. Instead, they began to create a field around the Valiant. The space around the ship started to distort. "Hull temperature rising," reported the Valiant's engineer. "They're somehow affecting our atomic structure from a distance." Phillips made a quick decision. "Implement Crazy Plan Delta." His officers looked at him with surprise. Crazy Plan Delta was something they had discussed but never expected to use. It was considered too dangerous. "Sir?" his second-in-command asked uncertainly. "You heard me," Phillips said firmly. "Begin now." The Valiant's engines fired at full power. Instead of moving away from the Voidborn, the ship moved directly toward it. This surprised the entity enough that it pulled back slightly. "What is Phillips doing?" Hayes asked. watching from the Dauntless. "I think he's trying to get inside the entity," Elena said with disbelief. The Valiant pushed forward. The dark cloud of the Voidborn began to surround the human ship. Alarms blared as the hull temperature continued to rise. "All power to the modified shields," Phillips ordered. "Prepare all disruptors for internal detonation." This was the heart of Crazy Plan Delta. The Valiant would allow itself to be partially swallowed by the Voidborn. Then it would detonate its weapons from inside, where they might do more damage. As the ship pushed deeper into the dark cloud, the crew felt strange effects. Gravity seemed to change. Some reported seeing things that weren't there. Time itself felt wrong. This was what happened when something from normal space entered void space. "Disruptors ready," the weapons officer reported, fighting against the disorientation. "Fire," Phillips ordered. Inside the Voidborn entity, the quantum disruptors detonated. Their effect was much stronger than before. The entity's solid core became visible as it writhed in what appeared to be pain. The dark cloud pulled away from the Valiant, leaving the ship damaged but intact. "It worked," Elena shouted on the Dauntless. "The entity is retreating." Hayes studied the sensor readings. The disruptors did much more damage from inside. All ships with disruptor technology prepare to implement the same tactic. On another part of the battlefield, Lieutenant Olivia Martinez coordinated the fleet's fighter squadrons. Human pilots flew their small, fast ships between the massive Voidborn. Their neural implants allowed them to react faster than any normal pilot could. These implants connected their brains directly to their ship's systems. Most alien species found this technology disturbing, but humans had embraced it. Squadron 3. Target the second entity, Olivia ordered. Use pattern Omega-6. The fighters moved in perfect formation, executing turns that would kill pilots without neural implants. The G-forces were extreme, but humans could handle more physical stress than most species. The fighters fired smaller versions of the quantum disruptors, aiming for the spots where the Voidborn seemed most solid. In the center of the fleet, the evacuation of the Krell continued. About half of the aliens had been moved to human ships. The rest were still on their damaged vessel. Back on the Dauntless, Dr. Garcia worked with Engineer Foster on a new idea. "If we convert 3 of our damaged support ships into electromagnetic pulse generators," she explained to Hayes, "we might be able to disrupt the Voidborn's ability to phase between normal space and void space." Hayes looked at the battle around them. 2 human ships had already been destroyed. 3 more were badly damaged. The Voidborn were still attacking, though slower now as they adjusted to the humans' tactics. "Do it," he ordered. "How long will it take?" 20 minutes, Foster said. "But someone will need to manually activate each generator. The ship's systems are too damaged for remote operation." Hayes nodded grimly. "Find volunteers. I know our people. There won't be a shortage." He was right. Crew members from throughout the fleet volunteered immediately. The Krell watched in confusion as humans willingly put themselves in extreme danger to help aliens they had just met. On the Krell ship, a human medical team led by Dr. Peter Jackson treated injured aliens. One massive Krell watched them work. "Why? Do you help us?" it asked. "You could leave. Save yourselves." Peter continued applying a medical patch to a wounded Krell. "That's not what humans do," he said simply. "We don't leave people behind." The Krell made a sound that might have been respect. "On your world, you learn to survive. On our world, we learn to build. Perhaps together we can do both." The 3 damaged support ships were quickly converted into pulse generators. Volunteer. Crews moved them into position around the battlefield. The plan was to create a triangle that would catch as many Voidborn as possible in its effect. "Generators at 80%, Foster reported from the engineering station. 90% ready to activate on your command, Admiral." Hayes opened a channel to the 3 ships. "Activate on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The 3 ships emitted a massive pulse of electromagnetic energy. The space between them seemed to ripple and tear. The Voidborn, caught in the effect, suddenly became fully solid. as if they could no longer partially exist in void space. Now, Hayes ordered. All ships, fire everything at the solidified targets. The human fleet unleashed a barrage of weapons. This time the attacks didn't pass through the Voidborn. Energy beams cut into them. Missiles exploded against them. The quantum disruptors tore them apart at the atomic level. 3 of the 7 Voidborn were destroyed completely. 2 more were badly damaged. The remaining 2 pulled back, retreating to the edge of the system. The pulse effect didn't last long. The generators burned out quickly, the 3 ships going dark as their power systems failed. But the volunteer crews had escaped in life pods before this happened. The remaining Voidborn are retreating, Daniel reported from his station. They're leaving the system. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. The Krell who had been watching the battle stood in shocked silence. They retreat? Krellvox asked in disbelief. We have never seen the Voidborn retreat before. Hayes allowed himself a small smile. They've never fought humans before. The battle was over, but the work had just begun. 5 human ships had been destroyed. 3 more were damaged beyond repair. The remaining fleet gathered around the Krell vessel, continuing the evacuation. Admiral Hayes stood in the main medical bay of the Dauntless. Around him, human doctors treated both their own people and the Krell. The room was crowded with injured crew members lying on beds. The massive Krell sat on the floor, their bodies too large for human medical equipment. Dr. Moore worked with Krell healers, sharing knowledge about different medicines and treatments. The aliens used biological compounds that humans had never seen before. The humans used technological solutions that surprised the Krell. Admiral, Elena said, entering the medical bay. Final casualty report. Hayes took the datapad she offered. His face showed no emotion as he read, but his eyes revealed his pain. 217 humans had died. Over 400 were injured. For a fleet of their size, these were heavy losses. And the Krell? Hayes asked. All 500. And 23 have been evacuated from their ship, Elena reported. Their vessel is too damaged to repair. They will need to stay with us. Hayes nodded and walked to where Krellvox sat. The alien leader's exoskeleton was cracked in several places, green fluid leaking from the wounds. Your people fought well, Krellvox said. Better than any species we have ever encountered. We had good reason to fight, Hayes replied. Innocent lives were at stake. The alien made a complex gesture with its 4 arms. My people have a tradition. When one saves the life of another, they are bound by what we call the life debt. Today you saved not just one life, but the last of our kind. Our debt to humanity can never be repaid. Krellvox reached into a pouch in its exoskeleton and pulled out a small crystal. This contains the scientific knowledge of our people, our bioorganic technology, our understanding of space-time. It is yours now. Hayes accepted the crystal with respect. Thank you. But we didn't help you to gain knowledge. We helped because it was right, which is why you deserve it, Krellvox replied. Dr. Moore joined them, excitement clear in her eyes despite her exhaustion. Admiral, the Krell biology is fascinating. Their exoskeletons can withstand pressures that would crush our ships, and their sensory systems can detect things we need complex instruments for. Hayes looked thoughtful. And we have adaptability and endurance that they lack. Together, we might develop better defenses against the Voidborn. If they return, Elena said. They will return, Krellvox stated. The Voidborn do not forget prey that escapes them. Later in the meeting room, the fleet's senior officers gathered. Maps showed their current position and the best route to the nearest Federation station. The Sentinel and the Valiant can still travel, Captain Lewis reported. The medical ships are undamaged. The rest of us can manage, but we'll be slower. Hayes studied the map. We'll need to stay in defensive formation. The Krell will be distributed among our remaining ships. Admiral, Daniel called from the communication station. I'm picking up more distress signals. They're coming from systems in the direction the Voidborn retreated toward. Everyone fell silent. The implications were clear. The Voidborn were attacking other worlds. How many signals? Hayes asked. 3 distinct signals, Daniel answered. all using Federation emergency protocols. Hayes looked around the room at his tired officers. They had just survived a terrible battle. The fleet was damaged. They had hundreds of injured crew members. And now, more people needed help. Plot a course to the nearest signal, Hayes ordered. Captain, Lewis looked surprised. Sir, with respect, our fleet is in no condition for another engagement. I'm aware of our condition, Captain, Hayes said, but there are people in danger. If we don't help them, who will? Elena nodded in agreement. The Federation ships in this sector aren't equipped to handle the Voidborn. We're the only ones who fought them and survived. From the doorway came a clicking sound. Krelvox had been listening. The huge alien stepped into the room, ducking under the doorframe. You would go to fight again? Krelvox asked. Even now? Yes, Hayes said simply. The alien was silent for a moment. Then it straightened to its full 15-foot height. Then the Krell will fight with you. We have lost our world, but perhaps we can help others keep theirs. We would be honored to have you with us, Hayes said. News of the decision spread quickly through the fleet. Despite their injuries and exhaustion, the human crews prepared for another battle. Engineers repaired what they could. Doctors treated the wounded. Weapons officers studied the data from their previous engagement, looking for better ways to fight the Voidborn. The Krell were amazed by human resilience. They watched as injured crew members, their bodies wrapped in medical patches that bypassed pain receptors, returned to their stations. They saw the determination in human eyes, the refusal to give up. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Elena stood next to Krelvox as the fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel. Your people are unlike any we have encountered, the alien said. Most species run from danger. You run toward it. Elena smiled. It's how we survived on Earth. When there's a forest fire, some animals run away, but humans learned to control fire instead. When there were predators, we didn't just hide. We became better predators ourselves. Is that why the Federation fears you? Krelvox asked. Because you do not run? They fear what they don't understand, Elena replied. They look at our history of conflict, our powerful weapons, our willingness to take risks, and they see danger. They don't see that these same traits are why we're here now, helping others. The alien made a gesture that Elena had learned meant deep thought. Perhaps that is the true strength of Deathworlders. Not just the ability to survive, but the choice to use that strength to protect. Admiral Hayes entered the bridge. The crew stood a little straighter despite their fatigue. All ships report ready, Admiral, Daniel said from his station. Hayes looked at his crew, at the Krell representatives who now stood among them, and then at the stars on the view screen. Somewhere out there, people were in danger. The Voidborn. We're attacking, and only the human fleet stood a chance of stopping them. Send a message to all ships, Hayes ordered. Tell them. The measure of a civilization is not just its technology or its art or its philosophy. It's what it does when others cry for help. Today we answer that call. He sat in the command chair. Set course for the nearest distress signal. Maximum speed. The damaged but undefeated fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. The ships left blue streaks against the blackness of space. They were heading toward danger, not away from it, because that's what humans do.